Now go back to the other one.
There's no go live.
Wait.
It's in stream, so it should be going live, right?
Yes, it should be.
Yeah. There we go. We're live now.
Oh yeah.
Should be. Yeah. Yeah. See if it'll come up.
Yeah, you're zoomed in.
Yeah, no, it's extraordinary. I have provided for it.
There you go.
I think we're up.
Yay! We got it.
There we are.
Ta-da!
That is so.
There you are. There you are.
All right, so good.
Look at that picture. There you are.
You're a little close today.
Is it time? Good morning, everybody.
Can I hop on there?
We
say hi to all the people.
We got started just a little bit late, so if you're at South Point, what we want you to do is make sure you do sign-in sheets. Get those sign-in sheets together and put those up. I'm going to be coming over to pick them up. We're going to be continuing on the same thing that we've been talking about for the last couple of 2 or 3 days, and that is we're going to be talking about spirituality and our recovery. But today what we're going to be going over is stress and how spirituality can help us with stressful situations and all of that kind of stuff. Kind of like what we just went through. So can spirituality help you in your in dealing with stress in your life?
Absolutely.
You think? Yeah. So we're missing about 30 people. So, that's kind of stressful, huh?
Well, somebody holler Bruce. Not in here. I'll do it.
So if you have your book, does everybody in here have a book?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Now, I do know that you're new, and we are going to, you don't have a book either, but I do know that Miss, one of the counselors is working on getting books for you.
Okay.
And there will be books. Now, look, your book may not be perfect. It may not be colored, but we will by Monday or Tuesday, we'll have colored books for you. My goal that you get a book the day you come in here. That's a goal, and that's going to come to fruition, but it's not right now at this point in time.
Okay.
But we are going to get that. That is going to happen. So on page 48 is where we were. And again, your book is a very important part of your treatment. Once you get the book, you need to begin on page 1 and begin to read your book, go all the way through the book, and read all of that.
Christy, okay.
So we're going to learn, and we did this a little bit yesterday. We learned the differences between religion and spirituality, and there is a huge difference. We're going to be, here's one of the things we want to really be doing is to overcome the antipathy toward religion. What does that word antipathy mean? Antipathy. That may not even be the way you say it, but I come from Mississippi. We talk funny over there. I have learned how to speak more gooder since I came over here, but antipathy. Where are you from?
Purvis, right outside of Hattiesburg.
I'm from Meridian.
Okay, yeah.
So antipathy means a complete, total, utter dislike, disregard, don't like it, don't care for it at all, just don't care for it. So we need to get to the place where we can get beyond that. Nobody is making us believe something we don't want to believe, but we need to be open to other things, right?
Right.
We need to try to be open to things that we haven't seen before and new things and all of that kind of stuff, especially if those new things they don't have to be guaranteed, but might help me in my recovery. Now, I don't know if you know this, but let me tell you in my own experience, I need all the help I can get. Not only getting in recovery, but staying there. Right? I mean, staying there. Every little thing can get you. If you're in recovery, every little thing is out to get you when you're in recovery. Now, I know that you may not realize this, but have y'all seen the birds flying around out here outside the window? What are they doing? What are those birds doing?
Looking for food.
What are they doing?
Looking for food.
They're looking for food. Most of the time, that's what I'm doing. You know, I'm looking for food. But they are looking for food, but they're also trying to get your recovery. They are. Those birds are insidious. They want to come in and get you distracted from group. I'll tell you, we were in here. I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't know you yet, but I will. What's your name?
Oh, you will. Billy.
Billy, let me tell you something. We were in here the other day, and there was a couple of ladies back, and we were doing a really great group, and it was really deep, and I was doing one of the best jobs I've ever done, you know. I was really doing well. And a fly came in here.
Oh, yeah.
And that fly distracted everybody in this group. The whole group was watching those two ladies fight the fly. You know, so, you know, everything that's out there, when we walk out of here, we've got a lady told me today that she is discharging today. And when we discharge and when we get out, we have to know that the moment I step out, then what do I have? What I have the moment I step out of here and get in somebody's car and drive off from this place, what do I have?
Freedom.
Freedom. I have the freedom to do any stupid thing I want to do. You know, we can't. We can just do we can go back to doing what we were doing. We can go back to the old places. We can go back to the old things. We can go back to the old people. We can go back to all of that old stuff that and you know, because one of the things we can't talk the counselors into doing is going with you when you leave. They're just not going to do it. You know, they're just like that. You know, they won't do it. So, you know, we're not going to be able to be there to say, hey, this is something you don't need to do. Now, you can get sponsors and you can get sober support people, and you should, right? And all of that stuff. But a lot of that stuff is going to help. It's going to hit us. And we need to know we need everything that can help us. If something is out there that can help you by 2%, is it worth following up on?
Yes.
If it's only 2%.
But it could be the 2% out of that makes you stick out from everything.
Could be the 2% you need. Could be the 2% that gets you over the hump. Could be that 2% that keeps you from drinking, using, doing something goofy again, right? Could be. So if it's going to help me by 2%, I'm going to go and pursue it. I'm going to try to make that part of my recovery program. Now, y'all see this person up here? This person is stressed out, right? And this person is stressed out. I'm not sure what gender this, but this person is stressed out. And it says stress can lead to mess, right? And it often will. Stress will get us all the time. What causes stress in your life?
Everything.
That's a good answer. Somebody said everything. And it, you know, everything can cause you stress. You know, there's bad things that happen in your life. Somebody died in your family, does that cause you stress?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can you give me an example of good stress?
Can I give you a sample of, you know, watch me this morning, be 5 minutes behind and couldn't get it up and all of that stuff, couldn't get that thing to work. And the lady came up here and messed me all up. She said, do this, do that. And it just messed the whole thing up. And she cost us 5 minutes in our group. Yeah, you know, so when it's time for her to discharge, she's going to have to stay 5 extra minutes.
Okay.
But that was stressful for who?
You?
No, no, it was stressful for you guys. I'm sure my boss was over there looking at the screen going, what's he doing? What's he not doing? You know what? You know, because she is real good at that stuff. She can go, Mr. Farmer can go, and it's all done and all of that kind of stuff. And I wrote it all down exactly as and when I do it exactly as sometimes it works. But you know, not all the time. And that's an example of stress. You know, when somebody says, hey, Dad, I'm gonna have a new child. Is that stressful?
Yes.
Of course it's stressful. My daughter came and told me, hey, you know, I am with child. I have been impregnated. I'm going to have a baby child. I'm going to have a kid. You know, immediately I suffered some stress. Well, and she had been married a couple of years. Everything was going along well. Her husband is fantastic. They're still married after 30 years. All of those things are great, but it still caused stress in my life. Huh? I'm finna be a grandpa. And so when that baby was all born up and everything, I went over there to meet him, and I was talking to him, and I said, look, his name is Christopher. I said, look, Christopher, I know you can't totally understand me now, but as you get a little bit older, you address me as Dr. Garner. We ain't having none of this pawpaw stuff. So that was a little bit stressful, but what kind of different stress is it when your daughter comes in and says, hey, Dad, I'm pregnant, and she's 14?
I went through that.
Yeah, that's a little bit
She
more
was
stress.
16.
Yeah, that can be a little bit more stressful, right? So there's all sorts of things can cause stress in your life. But the point of the study this morning is that even though all sorts of things can cause stress in your life, spirituality can help you with that stress. If you have a higher power and something is causing you a lot of inordinate stress, what does inordinate mean? More than you need. A bunch of it. There's more of it. There's enough of it to go around. You don't need all of that kind of stress. When that's going on, you have somewhere to go. If you have a spiritual connection, if you have a higher power, then you can go to that higher power and say, hey, I need some help with this. This morning, I was praying, let this thing work. It ain't all that hard. And then it came up and it showed me on the screen up here. And then, even the television got stressed up and went off. And then it went off. One of the things about this stuff here, when you've seen it on there, like that big face and all of that kind of stuff, it shows you just how old you really look. Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day, how does it feel to be 102?
How you?
I don't know. I forgot. I was back there before. So here's some of the things we need to conceptualize stress. When we say we're going to conceptualize stress, what do we mean? What do I mean when I say I'm going to conceptualize stress? What is this means? What is my concept of stress? And that's exactly what the lady asked. Tell me some things that cause stress. Okay, how do I conceptualize that? What is my concept of stress? Stress can get in you anywhere you want it to be. It can be good. It can be bad. Stress often has a negative connotation, though. People will tell you, well, I can't come to work today because I'm stressed out. I don't need that. I don't need that person around me because they stress me out. My kids, my own children, stress me out, right? They do. So, stress is, a lot of times it does. When we have something happen in our life, like we fail anything, I suffer from perfectionism. That means I have to have everything just right. And you know what? It's never all just right. Right? It's just never that way. That's not a good thing. Because you're never going to make it that way. You're always going to fail something. Right? Like we talked about yesterday, testing ourselves, going to the bar to show that I can. That's testing ourselves. That's not a good plan. Right? Because after a while, you're going to fail the test. Right? So here's the thing. Any kind of failure is going to cause me some negative stress in my life. If I fail a test, anybody ever failed a test? Me and you, we failed tests. I have failed a few tests in my life. I failed my first driving test. And I got through and I pulled up to the thing that the instructor said, "Let me out." So I didn't get my license that day. It took me 2 more years. I didn't get my license until I was 18. And everybody else was driving around me. So what did that cause me? It caused me some stress in my life because I like to be a truthful individual. And when Melody Jackson, y'all remember her? You don't?
Movie star?
No. She was a girl she was a girl at my high school.
Oh yeah, her.
But Melody came up and said, "Harsha, did you get your license?" "Oh yeah." Yeah, I ain't gonna show them to you because I don't like the picture. So having to lie for 2 years, that caused me a little stress as well. Um, any kind of illness, I'm diabetic, and yesterday I blew it. My wife usually makes me a very healthy lunch. She didn't do that yesterday. She didn't love me yesterday, so she didn't. So I had to go to McDonald's and buy one of them little bitty hamburgers. And while I was there, guess what? Somehow or other, don't really know how it happened, but somehow or another, apple pie jumped in my bag. Yeah, that's crazy. But if you get an apple pie that accidentally gets in your bag somehow or another, you have to be, it's the only right thing to do is to eat it. So I did. I ate it, and so that shot my sugar off and all of that kind of stuff. So I have that illness, and does that cause me stress?
Yeah.
Absolutely, that causes stress because I will tell you it's stressful to me to watch somebody else eat a piece of pie. And I can't have a piece of pie? Come on, that's stressful. So we have stress. Illness will cause stress in your life. Distresses are often marked as stress, what is distress? That's stress that goes beyond. That's stress that gets into distress. That means that I am at a place where I can't handle the stress that's in my life right now. Anybody ever been at that spot?
Sure.
I have been. I've been at the place where there was so much stress that I just had to go off somewhere. And I did do that. Just walk off. I worked at the prison for 16 and a half years, and 13 of those years I was working for TDCJ, and I quit every day. There's so much stress, I would say, okay, I quit, I'm gone, never going to do this again. Then the next day I would come back. But that was that level of stress. Just a high level of stress. Y'all know your counselors work really hard with the amount of clients that they have and all of that stuff. At the prison out there, we had like 50 or 60. So that's just stress on a stick. So you have to do some things to help you get beyond that stress. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. There's also a lot of things that can cause you some good things. Good things can cause you stress. Like getting a job promotion. When you get promoted, anybody, you want to get promoted, right? I mean, I'm like that. I want to get promoted. What's the next level? What's the next job that I can have? What's the next place that I can step up to? But when you get that promotion, the stress that comes with it is there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you got to do. When my boss said, hey, we're going to start streaming that stuff over there, and that's going to be wonderful, I said, man, that's going to be great. And every time I try to start that thing, it's a little bit stressful. Now I'm all stressed out because it's got my house on there. And all that kind of stuff.
Kind of like being in a rehab facility. It's stressful.
Yeah, it is. It's stressful. I don't know how that happens. So stress can be a result of things like job transfers or job promotions or job demotions or anything. The first time you felt it in love, y'all remember that?
The first time we fell in love.
Yeah. Some of y'all still waiting for that experience, I understand. But, the first day that I ever saw Letitia Doyle, I had some stress in my life. Because, she was perfect. And,
You said conceptualized stress. What does that mean?
Now, what then again? So somebody can
Conceptualized stress.
Conceptualization of stress. How do I see stress? What is stress to me? What is my concept of stress? How do I conceptualize stress? And that's what we're talking about. This thing causes me stress, that causes me stress, and can different things cause different people stress on different levels? I love to fly.
Yeah, that would stress me out.
Yeah, my wife won't fly with me. My wife, when I say, look, I'm going to England for a couple of weeks, she said, have a nice trip. She will not fly over. So when I get in an airplane, I'm trying to get the window seat, and I'm trying to look outside, see the clouds and the birds and the people and the things, that are out there. And she's sitting in the seat next to you going, You know. So she's freaked out, scared to death, and all of that kind of stuff, and I'm having a ball. So stress is different for different people. Were both of us having stressful situations?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was having negative, bad, horrible stress. There was stress in my life because I was enjoying the experience. So, we all have stress. The time that you stop having stress, there'll be people singing sad songs, because you'll be croaktified. You won't be living anymore. So, but stress, here's what stress is. Stress is an adaptive response. Now look, y'all don't try to memorize this, but stress is an adaptive response mediated by individual characteristics or psychological processes that is a consequence of any internal action. Get all of that?
Yeah.
Situation or event that places special physical or psychological demands on the person. If I get into a situation that causes me to have situational or psychological stress, it's going to be notable. We're going to be able to see that. I'm going to be able to know that. Now, is it a bad thing to have stress in your life?
No, not all the time.
Well, it happens that's a good answer. It happens all the time, so it can't be bad all the time, right? Well, I mean, if everything in the world is going to stress me out, if I get up this morning and get stressed out because I got up to go work out this morning and I was watching the news, so I got out of my house 5 minutes late to go work out. Is that stressful? Yeah, sure. Now I got to go a little bit faster so I can get over to the gym. And when I got to the gym, guess what? There was nobody there. It was 5:30 in the morning. There was 5:31, and there was nobody there. So the stress level was a little bit different. So usually when I'm there, there's about 17 or 18 people wanting to get the same machine that I want to get. Is that stressful? Yes, it's stressful. I'm trying to be a bodybuilder, athlete, a Greek god, and these people are in my way. So that's stressful, And you have people say, "I'll be through," and okay, and they clean the seat for 25 minutes. They wipe the seat down. There ain't nobody, it's in the morning. It's 5. Ain't nobody been on that for 24 hours at least. It's not anyway.
Well, you never know.
You never know. Somebody could have snuck off in there at nighttime. So stress can be defined as any state during which the body tends to mobilize its resources and during which it utilizes more energy than it would originally produce. Y'all get all that?
Yeah, say the last
You
one.
just now started. Stress can be defined as any state during which the body tends to mobilize its resources. Any state. Huh?
Will we get a sheet?
You're never going to get this, is it? It's my stuff. But you can get a copy.
Okay.
During which it utilizes more energy than it would originally produce.
So,
The real important thing is it says any state.
I have a question.
Okay.
So when you say the last part of any, is it taken away or is it giving you more?
More energy.
Yeah.
Giving you more energy?
Or is it?
Uses more energy.
Yeah. So is it taking away or is it?
Yeah. It says, look, it utilizes more. That means it uses more of your energy up.
So it takes it away.
It takes it away. Stress can cause you to become exhausted.
Okay.
I see counselors leave at the end of the day sometimes, and you just know that person they just wound down. They are exhausted. Because the stress of the job. You look at I used to, I don't do it anymore, but I used to work out with a bunch of police officers, and when they came to work out, they would be like drained because the stress of the job would just drain them, get them out. So it uses more energy than it would originally produce. So that means if I have a bottle of water and I'm putting more water in that bottle, but the bottle has a hole in the bottom of it, and if it's leaking more water out than I'm pouring in, what's going to happen? Eventually, the bottle is going to get empty, right?
Yeah.
And so if you are using up more energy than you are putting in, then before too long, you're going to be empty as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So stress is going to do that. Stress is any condition that strains the coping capacities of the person. How do we cope? How did we used to cope?
Using drugs.
Drugs, alcohol,
Sex.
Anger, whatever it was that helped me cope, that's what I was doing. That was my coping skill. So that's why I need now to build better coping skills, different coping skills, so that when this stress gets in my life, I don't immediately say, where's my friend Jim? I need to go see Jim, Mr. Bean. You know, I need to go see him. And that worked back then, but I'm at a place now where that can't work for me.
It ain't working no more.
It ain't working no more. So I've got to stay away from that.
Yeah.
Is that coping skill? I have to come up with
it's called
something
Jack.
different. So now that we did all of that, now we know what stress is, right? Are people stressful?
Yes.
Yeah. So when we get out of here, if we go back to the same old people, is that going to be a stressful situation?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. And so what happens when I get into a stressful situation?
If you say just deal with it, is that bad?
Well, no, you should be able to deal with it, but we got to figure out how on earth am I going to deal with it. I used to deal with it with drugs and alcohol. I used to deal with it with confrontation. I now have to figure out how to deal with it without confrontation, without drugs, without alcohol.
Do what we're doing right now, relearning coping skills,
Relearning some coping skills. Praying. That's where we get back to the spirituality and recovery. If I'm stressing out, I need to go to my higher power.
Leave, like Genji said, leave them.
Leave them. Leave them. Now, here's the deal. If you leave them, you may have to grieve them, but look, don't believe them. That's true. Look, sometimes it's not an easy thing to leave some of those people that you love. But if you go back to some of those people that you love, you're going to wind up right back in the same tub of mess you were in when you drug yourself out of that and say, hey, I had enough of this. And now you're over here and you feel a little bit better and everything's good. And you say, well, I wonder what Bubba's doing. It don't make any difference what Bubba's doing. You need to take a few minutes, leave them, and grieve them. Because they're going to tell you, look, you come back over here, I ain't never going to do nothing. Everything going to be fine. I ain't never going to use again. I ain't never going to do that again. Don't believe them.
Yeah.
Leave them and grieve them, but please don't believe them. All right. So stress often has a negative connotation. It's not always. But stress can cause you some illnesses. Stress can cause some stuff physically that you need to know about. And if you are in a stressful situation, and we're going to talk about this before the day is over, you need to what? If you're in a negative, stressful situation, what do you need to do?
Leave it.
Leave it. Get out of that. Stop it. You got to figure out how can I deal with that stress in my life. And one of the greatest ways is what we're just talking about, spirituality and our recovery. I'm going to if something's causing me some stress, I'm going to start praying about it. And look, that's a lot of good help when that old people start coming back around knocking on your door. When they knock on the door, if you grab them by the shoulder and say, okay, I'm glad you're here, let's pray. And you just start praying all over, won't be long before they'll leave. Yeah, they get on out of there. One of the scariest things for all of those people who are still out there using drugs and alcohol is the phrase, do you know my friend Jesus? They go, what? What? No, I'll come over here and talk. No. We finna have a Bible study. Sit down over here. They ain't gonna stay around long. No, they're not.
This is special.
Yes, that's good. You did good. Talk about stress. They just tore a shoe up. Now she's playing with it,
That's right.
stresses me out. Stresses me out because we in group, she's playing with her shoe.
I'm not paying no more.
There are some physical disorders that have short-term effects that are caused by stress. Y'all ever been stressed out and make you have a stomach ache?
Yes.
I have been stressed out to the point, I'm eating those gas X things like candy, and then choking them down with Alka-Seltzer. Yeah, Pepto-Bismol. Pepto-Bismol, nasty stuff. Yeah, it's nasty. But I have tried all of that stuff. But stress will cause you to have an upset stomach. Yeah, and that's just a little bitty thing because usually the upset stomach's not going to hang around very long, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe tomorrow my upset stomach's feeling better. Now, what I really, really, really don't like is have a lot of stress in my life and then have to go to bed stressed.
Oh my God.
You know. Yeah, the Bible tells us not to let the sun go down on our anger.
Yes.
But, stress is the same way. I don't be stressing out because if you're stressed out on something, are you going to sleep well that night?
Nope.
No. I don't know.
Usually not. Well, you may. Yeah, everybody. There's always.
I take medicine though.
Yeah,
so
there's always an outlier, and then there's people who take drugs to have to sleep.
Yes.
I don't do no more drugs.
But
Except for this one.
Yeah, except for this one. It is.
A couple more over here on the side.
Oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I don't talk like that. So it'll cause you an upset stomach, but look, there are some bigger things that stress can cause. If you're in a little bit of stress for a little while, is that normal?
Yes.
Yes, it's normal. My wife called me and says, "Hey, I'm going to such and such." Okay, she's driving by herself. To me, that's stressful because she don't drive with. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm stressed. I'm a little bit stressed out, and that can cause me a little bit of a stomach problem. Just a little one. But if that stress stays there with me for a long period of time, can it do more damage?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it can do more than just an upset stomach. Look, how many people like upset stomachs?
Not me.
That's one of the worst things. If I had the choice between an upset stomach and a toothache, I'd take the upset stomach because I really don't like toothaches.
No.
But I really don't like upset stomach. So I want to be able to cope with the stress in my life to the point that it doesn't cause me that. But if I have stress that I can't cope with and that stress stays in my life for a long, long time, if you have children, how long does the stress of having children, how long does that stay in your life?
So they're
It never goes away.
Forever. Because children will do crazy things like bring you some little kids over to the house and say, "This your grandchild." What? What? And then, later on they say, "Well, this is your great grandchild." So I'm saying, what's so much better about this one than about that? Anyway. Anyway. Some physical disorders have longer term effects because if we don't get that stress out of our lives, that upset stomach can become an ulcer.
Yes.
That's acid. Upset stomach is acid in your stomach, and your stomach lining is tough. It can take a lot of stuff for a long time, but at some point, it's going to eat a little hole in there. And when it eats that little hole in there, guess what?
What?
That hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts, and it's not good. And so if you can get rid of stress and avoid something like that, it's worth it to come up with a coping skill that gets the stress out of my life, right? Or at least moderates the stress to a manageable level, right? I need to manage it. I need to manage my stress because if I don't manage my stress, what happens? It becomes distress, and it is stress that I can't handle, right? So I need to have some good coping skills. There's some other stuff. But stress over prolonged time also leads to degenerative heart disease. Disease of the heart, disease of the kidneys. It can harden your blood vessels and other parts of the other parts of the body. Stress can also lead to physical disorders because the internal body system changes in order to deal with stress. Y'all know what the fight or flight syndrome is?
Yeah.
A lot of the time we get into that fight or flight syndrome when we're in a stressful situation. And what does that do? Exactly what it says. It gets us all ready to run or to fight. To flight or fight. We want to either run or we're going to fight. But what happens is it gets that level way up here somewhere. Our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up, our muscles get more oxygen so that they can get bigger and all of that stuff gets stronger. Our body our digestion slows down because it wants to hold that food in there, so because it doesn't know when you're going to get the next meal. So it does a lot of stuff, but it gets you up there to where you are stressed completely. It's just tore up, and if you cannot stay there long because it will harden your blood vessels, and it will do all sorts of things to your body. So you need to be cautious about all of that stuff. And if you're one of those people who do that a lot, my perfect advice for that: cut that out. Just stop. Don't do that. And there's ways to deal with that kind of stuff. There are 8 areas of stress we're going to look at, and we're probably going to have to be in here a couple extra hours today. But we got nothing to do, so that's not true.
Everybody got silent.
That's not true. But I want to look at these 8 areas, and then we'll be done. And all of this goes back to spirituality in recovery. Stress, we have to have some mechanism to help us get away from stress. We have to have some way to deal with the stress that's in our life. And one of the best ways that I know to deal with stress in your life is to turn it over to your higher power. I can't deal with this anymore. Okay. And my mama ain't going to deal with it. And my daddy ain't going to my kid's not going to deal with it. My counselor's not going to deal with it. They're going to be really good, nice, kind, and sweet to me. But when the day's over, they're going home, and I'm going to be still here with all of the mess that's in my life. So I've got to have somebody I can turn it over to. So if I have a higher power, if I have a spiritual connection, then I can turn that over to God. I can just turn that over, and I don't have to fool with it. Well, one thing about stress is that it is a predisposition. What does that mean? What does predisposition mean? Already? We are predisposed. That means I am more likely to be a stressful person. If my mama was stressed out all the time, my daddy was stressed out all the time, then I'm more likely to be, that's kind of in my genes. There's a lot of stressed out people in my life. Does that mean you have to be stressed out? No, but it's a good thing to know that. You know that this is something you have to deal with, right? If you're born with green eyes, what does that mean? The rest of your life, you have to deal with the fact that you have green eyes.
Okay, I was like, where are we going with this?
There's not anything you can do about it. You got these green eyes.
I didn't know where you're going with that one. I was like, wait, what?
So here's the deal. Stress as a predisposition. The concept of viewing stress evolved over a whole bunch of years in response to experiments and all of this kind of stuff. And if you are a type A personality, who's a type A personality? Yeah, type A personality is that person who's wanting to go all of the time, wanting to get more, wanting to do more. They usually have 7 or 8 different irons in the fire. They're doing all sorts of things all of the time. Yes, ma'am?
Oh, you said who? I said no.
You a type A?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, I'm type A. I'm always doing something. I'm always going somewhere. I'm, all the time. I've got 14 different things that I'm planning now. So that's a type A personality, and that can cause you to be stressed completely out, right? They did a study on a whole bunch of young men who were type A personalities, and they were having heart disease at a very early age. So being a type A personality, although most of the time type A personalities get a lot of stuff done, they can die early because they're doing all of that. You know, a lot of them are what we call workaholics. Always working. That's not a good thing. Need a little bit more self-care. So that's stress as a predisposition. There are people out there that just suffer from that because what? They suffer from that. That they're just a type A personality. What's a type B personality?
It's almost like an addiction.
It is, yes, and people do get addicted. We get addicted to work. We get addicted to church. We get addicted to fun. We get addicted to going to the boat. We get addicted to whatever. Get addicted to flying. Well, you know, we have addicted personalities. We can go get addicted to anything. How many people you know that are addicted to their telephone? Some of you guys went through withdrawal because you don't have telephone. I see people sitting around going, "What are you doing?"
Thumb therapy.
So, what's a type B personality? That's people who they're lazy. Yeah, they're a little bit more lazy. They're a little bit more laid back. They're a little bit more. I don't have to get it done right now. I can get it done a couple of hours from now. It's going to be okay if it doesn't get done today, right? Now, and then what's type C? Type C personality.
Yes.
That's the people sleep. That's the people sleeping in group right now.
I just started my medicine.
That's type C. So here's number 2 type of stress. How about your family? How many people know it's called familial stress? So you know your family's in your stress in your family.
So type C is what?
A family stress.
It's called familial.
Okay.
FAMIAL. Familial stress. So your home can be a potential source of stress. Regular and unexpected situations demand adaptive and coping style for the individual. Something happens. Your honeypot comes in and says, "I ain't gonna do this no more," and they're gone. That's stressful. You know, all of those kind of stuff. Your children, whatever they do, is stressful. You know, those things. As your kids grow up, they do other things that cause you stress. When they tell you, "Look, I have to go to," then you get, I'm going into college. I'm going into high school. I'm going into, I went to. I guess it was probably a year ago. I went and watched my grandson, one of my grandsons, graduate from the first grade. That was pretty neat. Yeah, it was interesting. But that was stressful. That was stressful. I'm sitting in the audience out there, and I'm looking around, and all of these little kids are graduating from the first grade and stuff like that. And I'm looking around here, and I say, I just don't fit in with all these old people. But unfortunately, I think I did. So, interpersonal relationships, we can have relationship issues that can cause us, when you first meet somebody, they're perfect. 5 minutes later, they have a body odor. A little bit later, they take their shoes off, you pass out. There's interpersonal relationships that go on there. Things happen. Getting married, marriage. Deciding to move in with somebody, deciding to do those life change things, they can cause you a lot of stress in your life. Communication barriers. What do you think when people get divorced? What do you think the number one reason for divorce is?
Finances.
No.
Children.
No.
Children.
Children. No. What it is? Lack of communication. No. The number one reason for divorce is marriage.
Okay.
But here's the deal. Communication is a real big one, Miss Mallory. You're right. Because people don't communicate. How often in a week's time, how often do couples communicate?
15 minutes a day.
No,
15
you're
minutes a
wrong.
week.
15 minutes. See, we talked about that earlier. 15, and she was listening. 15 minutes in a whole 7-day period. Can you believe that that's true? That a couple speaks to one another 15 minutes in a whole, that's the average. You get up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to work.
A whole week? Or
I get up in the morning, come to work, my wife's still in bed. She doesn't get up. I'm gone before she ever gets up. Wow. You know, I left at 5 o'clock this morning. So she's still sleeping. And then I go to bed at about 8 o'clock at night. So we force the issue. We sit on the couch and we communicate. That couch you guys were looking at, we communicate.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's good. Some of those things are shifting residences. How many folks move? You know, if you've ever moved, you know how stressful that can be. We used to live in a big old house up in the country, and all the kids left, and you know, after the party we had because of that, we decided to move to a smaller house, and we still have just tons of stuff that, you know, in the barn that's probably no good at all, but we've been living in our smaller house now for 25 years. And so, you know, that stuff's been in the barn for
25 years.
25 years. And my wife said, yeah, I'm going to have a garage sale. This stuff ain't no good. Ma'am?
She said, I want to come.
Say it again. I can't hear you.
I want to come to your barn sale.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to have that. Yeah. So, shifting of resident, illness or bereavement of a family member, all of those things can cause us stress. And quite frankly, they should cause us stress, right? But all of the stress that we have in our lives should be short-lived, right? It should stay there forever. I know folks who are still suffering from grief. I'm a grief counselor, a complicated grief counselor. And I know people who are still grieving after 15 years. You know, they haven't been able, and it's okay to think back and have a moment of grief. But, you know, after 15 years, you should be able to move on with your life. That doesn't mean you forget the person. That doesn't mean that you give up. That, you know, that memory of that person, that's supposed to be a sacred thing for you, but you move on.
What if it's somebody, like, it's different, though, when you have a different father on your birth certificate and you look for them for a long time and then you find out that they're dead. So
that would be a stressful situation, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I have sisters I've never met. I wish them well. I ain't going to look for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to stress out. I'm not going to go look for them. I've never met them. They're twins, Linda and Glenda. I have no idea where they might be living. You know, I had stuff in my life like a lot of you guys have had in your life, you know. I hope they're well. And the fact is that they were like 10 years old before I was ever born, so they old. They might be dead old, you know. So, but it is a strange situation when you go and you find that you know that would be those things are all stress inducing, and the point that we're belaboring is that when I get into a stressful situation like that one, then I need to have a higher power I can go to get some of that stress out of my life. There are other ways, and we're going to talk about those in a little bit. So there's some other things that's going to cause stress in your life. How many people know, and I'm sure that everybody does, and I apologize for using that terminology, but, you know, there's a lot of stressful occupations out there. What do you think is the most stressful occupation you can think about?
Yeah,
What is it?
Policeman.
Policeman?
Fireman.
A fireman, a policeman, a what?
A mother.
Lawyer.
A scuba diver, somebody said. What else? An Uber driver,
Astronaut.
DoorDash driver.
a DoorDash driver,
Astronaut. A
an
lawyer.
astronaut, a what?
A lawyer.
A lawyer.
Teacher.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that's just occupations have the, you know, taxi driver, people like that. I would not do those jobs. Those are, unless I just absolutely had to. You know, if you're I don't want to call them an officer out of prison. Is that stressful? It's very.
Prison guard.
Yeah, that's not the term. They cause stress in your life if you call them a guard. They're not guards. They're correctional officers. They are actually policemen inside the prison system.
Yep.
So you know they don't like that terminology, but that's a real stressful job, isn't it? They can get killed any day, and some of them have, and it's just a stressful situation. So there's all. How about a lumberjack?
Indeed.
Somebody cuts down trees out in the middle of the woods. They cut down a tree and it falls on them. That's hard. Or they slip, cut somebody's arm off with saw, stuff. You know, and you're out there a long way from emergency services. Does that cause you some stress?
Mm-hmm.
Just getting up in the morning thinking about your job can cause you some stress. You know, some of these jobs you have to be called to. Some of them I wouldn't want to do. One of the other things, those are risky jobs, and they go against the interest of your family. You know, a policeman that gets up in the morning, he's got a wife and 2 or 3 kids, and he goes out to the job, and he doesn't know if he's going to make it back or not. That's not just about him. He has a wife and 3 kids. And so it's not really fair to those guys either. So that can be stressful. How about working for low wages?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody ever work for low wages?
Or making it all?
I feel like as a CNA, I should have got paid more than $11.25 an hour for working 12 hours a day, but it's okay.
You make $25 an hour?
No, $11.
Oh, I thought
25 cents.
11. I thought you said $25. I said, shut up. Be quiet. That's hard. It's hard because sometimes when you get the money, you know, there is I heard a report the other day that says like 75% of Americans could not come up with $400 without selling something or borrowing it. And I don't know where they came up with the $400. You know, some people can't come up with $4. And that's stressful because you know that, hey, I can't have the best car, I can't have the best house, I can't eat the best food because I'm working for $11.25 an hour.
Too bad I even have a car.
I don't have a car. I got to ride on the bus or something like that. Is that stressful?
Indeed.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's stressful. You know, they take so much out of your pay, you actually wind up owing the boss a couple of dollars. You know, that's stressful stuff. So working for low wages, insecurity in your job. Have you ever worked in a job that you knew that you may not have it the next day?
Maybe.
Have you ever worked in a job where your boss would come up and tell you, you know, we don't need you, we don't really need you if you don't do this, we're not.
They're always
That's stressful. Stressful stuff. And this is another one that stress, lack of appraisal from your employer. What does that mean?
That means
They don't tell you
give
thank you or attaboy.
Don't tell you
They
that you're
appreciate.
They don't appreciate you enough.
Yeah,
you know.
Until you fuck something up, sorry. You mess up.
Yeah, until you mess something up. The deal about it is that most people will stay at a job if they feel like they are appreciated at the job.
Yes.
So it's more important, even more than money, for the employer to come by and pat you on the back from time to time. It's a really good thing. I used to work for a company where we had a meeting every Monday morning. And the boss, it was a Zoom meeting, there were about 40 of us, and the boss would get on the Zoom meeting and cuss everybody, tear everybody up, talk about how terrible, horrible, and nasty you did, and all of that kind of stuff. And then when it was over with, everybody in the company was not doing much. You know, they all kind of rebelled against that. And you know, that just makes sense. You should be trying to build people up instead of tear people down. So if you're in a company where that's not happening, then you have some issues. You know, you can get into some stress. We're going to hurry on this one because we're just about at break time. And as Luke says, you know, receiving contradictory directions. The company that I'm working for here now, Manor, has set it up so that there is a clear line of demarcation. There's a clear line of who's the boss over who. So when there's an issue, you go to your boss. They give you directions, and you can follow those with impunity. You know that, and there's not somebody else is not going to come and tell you, well, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Wait a minute, my boss. And so that's the only supervisor you have. And that's the way it ought to be. But if you have just one come and tell you got to do this, somebody else in authority comes and tells you, that's causing a lot of stress. Right? Yeah. So we can't be doing those things. So along with these, loss of employment, I have been fired. I have lost. We've had companies just shut down that I was working for, and that's not good. You show up to come to work one morning, and the doors are padlocked. Little sign that says, "We ain't here no more. We ain't doing this no more." We're driving a truck. Delayed payments. I had a company one time I was working for. They just stopped paying us. They expected us to come to work the next day, but they didn't pay us.
Oh, no.
My wife and I worked at the same company. My wife worked there she quit. The first time she didn't get a check, she went home. I stayed another month. And finally, I went home too, because you can't work very long for no money. I went, okay, that was nuts, but that just happened to me. Strain interpersonal relationship among colleagues. If you have somebody that you're working with that you don't like, is that tough?
Yeah.
That can cause stress. We ought to be able to deal with that, especially if we have a higher power that we can do that. So it is break time. We'll get back in here about 15 after. Thank you guys for being participatory this morning.
You've been quite a delight.
Watch the thing don't fall down, because if you fall and hurt yourself,
You're going to sue me.
I'm going to sue you.
Go ahead. Yeah. The council requesting?
Yes. I rang.
Somebody stole the trash.
Yeah.
I just moved it.
It's done nauseous for a second.
Are you okay?
No, fine, no.
It's fine. Leave it there. You don't know if you're gonna get sick.
No.
I like that. Hurt.
I know, it's bad. Like it.
I got it in a second.
All right.
I'm getting sick now. I'm still in. I'm sick. This what teacher stuff?
Yeah. You leave tomorrow too?
Huh?
You leave today?
Yes.
You
Yeah, I'm just
excited?
waiting on him to come get me. Yeah. I can't leave right now. I can leave right now for one, but then I gotta wait for him to come get me. I'm kind of waiting. No. Oh, wait now!
I think that.
White spring.
White spring. Mucus coming up there. I can be just spoken.
Chicken salad.
Also the chicken salad. Was gonna be the deli meat and the chicken salad.
For lunch is 18.
The traditional first shot. Just a little bit plus, you know, like big shots. I do want to, you know, have to do it for the last, Jennifer, I'm gonna leave you my money to my cigarettes. Is that okay? Why? Just in case I miss it. Oh, you're. Yeah. Yeah. Cigarette order. Yes. Wait, I'll see your cigarette. I just smoke like community creamer. Yes, for sure. Yes. Let's get to you now. Is that the 620? The 621 would have been you. We only got 1, 2, 3, 4 more days in this month. 7 more days and I have 180 days. You said 20. I don't have either. Anybody have any tweezers?
I did, but they just don't work anymore. I just need them for
I will use some shrimp rice. I'm over there from that restaurant up there. The only churches that we have open right now is over there by Congress. So right in front of it, they got a building that looks like the Chinese restaurant. Whatever. It's a good fries. It's a shrimp fries, chicken fries, and then they got one where you like mix them together. Usually the people that when you go there and they got sugar back, right? They just open the little thing and you look at it. Even the meat supposed. Or coastal good too. Coastal? Seafood coastal?
I don't know, but some fast food I've been on sounds so good right now.
Yeah, their coastal is large, like really a lot of food. Mhm. I got me some shrimp and some fries and fish.
They really are. They're not where I normally get them. I'll try to remember them. And look at that. Maybe look. I wonder if I could. It's
It's a little nippy in here.
yeah.
Yeah, she's
Look at them. Thank you. I didn't do it. Processes.
she got that shit Claudia had. That
I got some stuff in here that won't give you some.
she has so strong. I forgot what
I got some. They were giving some for my later. See if I can do some new stuff.
Then I waited myself. Monday I waited 190. Then yesterday they waited me and I waited 190. I was like, I want to keep it. Why do you keep it out there? Because I came here waiting 150. That's a whole lot. I said, damn, I ate all that shit and I still will. That is 191. Right there. You sure?
Yeah, that's my phone. I just
I'm
You're
making
talented.
What? Look.
Yeah. I'm not going to do that.
I was just seeing if it would work.
Sure.
You have the sticky stuff to put on it?
I
Glue?
put glue on it and just dipped my finger down in there, and it worked a lot better than trying to individually put them on my finger because they're so tiny. So I guess that's what I'm gonna do. You don't want no glitter on your fingernails.
No, I'm going to pass for today.
Okay.
You should.
Well, we're back. Hope everybody's made it back. We've got a couple of other things I want to share about stress and what it's doing to us. The most important part of understanding stress and how it works in our lives and everything is how to deal with it, how to get it out of our lives, how to not be overly stressed till we get to the point where we are at distress. So we're going to continue to look and see some of the things that will cause us stress and some of those things, and then the end part of it, if we get it done today, it'll be a good thing. If not, then we'll do it tomorrow and we'll finish up with the ways to get stress out of our life. Knowing before we get into that we're not going to be able to remove all the stress out of our life. We're always going to have stress that works in our lives on some level. The ideal is to allow that stress to operate without that stress becoming distress and doing something horrible in our life. One of the best ways that we can deal with stress in our life is to have a higher power. Have someone we can go outside of ourselves. I need that. And I'm assuming that all of us need that. We need to have someone that we can go outside of ourselves and someone that we understand can do something about it. I have a lot of family and I have a lot of friends and all of that kind of stuff, and most often they will be willing to listen and be willing to hear me out and stuff like that when I have stressful stuff going on, but a lot of the times they can't do much about it. They can't give me the money I need. They can't give me whatever I need. They can't do anything about some of the illnesses and some of the losses that I've had in my life and things like that. But my higher power can. And so I go to him on a lot of these things. Now, one thing that causes us a lot of stress is our assessment of the situation. What does that mean?
Looking at the situation.
Just making something up. Yeah, that'll cause
I said
stress.
looking at the
Oh,
situation.
she's had something else. Looking at the situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at the way that you look at what's going on. It's like we talked about moving. Some people will look at that as a horrible, terrible, nasty, terrible thing, right? And get really stressed out about it. Other people will look at that as an adventure. I get to go to a new place. I get to meet some new people. I get to leave my dog here. There's all sorts of things that we can know. We look at things differently. So individual subjective assessment about a situation is important in labeling it as a stressful situation or not. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about flying. To me, flying is a wonderful pastime. It's a fantastic thing to be able to get in and take off and just fly around a little bit, and you can see forever, all of that stuff, flying out over the marshes around Orange and stuff like this. Neat. It's wonderful. Not so neat when the engine quits.
No.
Usually those things, you use more oil in the small aircraft than you do anything else. More oil usually than fuel. That's not true, but it seems like that because the pistons are made smaller so that there's a lot of room in that cylinder so that they're not going to stick. They're not going to freeze up in there. So you got to make sure every time you go flying that you've got plenty of oil in there because it's going to dump it. It's going to get it out of there. So, but that same situation can be very highly stressful for my wife. And it can be very highly stressful for a lot of people. I've had people tell me I don't fly. I don't ride on a train. My daughter is a nurse and highly intelligent and well trained, but is afraid to drive over bridges. Yeah, stresses her out to drive over a bridge. And her brother told her, well, there's really not any ogres under the bridge, but it's an inordinate fear. It's nothing that makes any sense, but it causes her a lot of stress in her life. So what does she do?
Don't follow.
She doesn't. If you're going to go anywhere, you pretty much have to drive over a bridge.
Yeah.
But she doesn't drive over the big bridge. The bridge. What's that big bridge going north? The Rainbow Bridge. She won't drive over that. She goes all the way around the highway. All of that stuff. She's not going to drive over that bridge.
I hold my breath when I go over that bridge.
What happened to
I
the
hold
bridge?
my breath and I close my eyes when I drive.
I'm so glad.
That's why we're scared of him.
She says she's a little scared of the bridge, so she drives over it, holding her breath and closing her eyes. That one. So, I have a daughter-in-law who comes from Nigeria, and in Nigeria they don't have guns. We have guns. We have guns. People have guns. In Nigeria they're not allowed to have guns, and so she came over here, and I have guns hanging on the walls, hanging from the ceiling, under the bed, in the drawer. I was in the military a long time. I just like guns. We've got a lot of them. And we took a picture of her holding an AR-15, sent it to her dad in Nigeria.
Oh no.
Might have been a mistake. Caused her dad a little bit of consternation, a little bit of stress. Sent her back a text message. What are you doing? She's joined the cult. So anyway, the way that you look at that situation, for me and for us in this area and in Texas and the United States, that's normal and natural in the thing. In Nigeria, not normal, not natural, not the thing. So he got a little bit stressed over that. And I'm talking to him. He got talking so fast, I couldn't understand where he said. I just said, yes, sir, you're right. Yes, sir. So all right. So a situation which is highly stressful for some people, for example, transferring in a job, going somewhere new. How many people like to go somewhere new?
No.
I do. I love to travel. I like to go somewhere new. I like to go to different places. But I'm not too sure I want to move. That can be a little bit stressful. But a transfer in a job, some people are going to see that as, like we said, an opportunity to see new places, meet new people, and do new things. Right? Mm-hmm. There's other people who are stressed completely out about that because they become connected to the place where they're living. This is my house, right? This is my land. This is my whatever. So they get a little bit stressed because of that. So what do?
Deal with it.
You still have to go back to the higher power. We need to have somebody we can talk to about all that kind of stuff. Sometimes do we have to move?
No.
Yes.
Sometimes we do. When I was in the military, they didn't say, would you like to go here? They said, you get your stuff. If you want your stuff, get your stuff because you're going. Your stuff don't have to go, but you're going, so we didn't have much of a choice. But for some people, that's just how I assess the situation. I need to take a look at that situation and make sure that situation is something that warrants me being a little stressed out over. I don't need to get stressed out over everything that comes along because it may not warrant me being stressed out over it. Right? Mm. Yeah. So I don't think, most of the stuff that happens in our lives that we get really stressed out over is probably not something that warrants us being stressed out over. What's the best thing to do if you feel yourself getting stressed out?
Breathe.
Pray.
Go for a walk.
Pray.
Do some breathing, do some praying, go somewhere, sit down and wait for 10 minutes. Just wait for 10 minutes. Because in 10 minutes, the stressful situation can probably be over with. Be gone. Right? Mm-hmm. It can, a situation which is highly stressful for some persons or some people, may not be for anybody else because or some other people. Then there are somatic causes of stress. Somebody quickly tell me what somatic is.
Things that happens in the body.
What is it?
Things that happen in the body.
Something that happens in your body. Like, see, I knew, look at that brilliant, person. So something that happens in my body is somatic, right?
No, it's from home.
So it's somatic, it hurts, my somatic is hurting. So there's some stuff, somatic outcomes. If I have a lot of stress in my life and if I allow that stress to build up, it's going to cause some junk in my life, right? Mm-hmm. We talked about stress leading to mess. So it's going to cause me some stuff in my life. If I allow it to build up to that place of distress, then I'm going to start having some medical issues. So what will stress cause in my life?
Migraine.
High blood pressure. Bald head.
All of those, yeah. It causes migraine, headaches.
Constipation.
Your hair will fall out.
That is true.
You guys been steady on all that stuff. Yeah, your hair gonna fall
I just hit 30. I just hit 30.
That's what I'm saying,
I'm studying in everything that affects my body and wrinkles on my forehead.
You just hit 30?
I just hit 30.
Oh, goodness. Yeah,
That's
I have underwear
pretty
older than that. It's true. It will cause a loss of appetite. And if you're getting a lot of stress, you're not going to want to eat. It's going to, you're going to have a loss of appetite. Is not eating good for you?
No.
No, that was one of the worst things when I couldn't keep any weight on when I was using. I mean, because I was drinking, I wasn't eating. So, but stress will also cause you to have a loss of appetite. And somebody already said constipation. Is that fun?
No.
No, we don't like that. Because when you need to go, right? And you don't want to not be able to. So constipation can cause. Here's the deal. Stress can cause constipation, right? Constipation can cause stress.
Or you can go all the way the other way around. Instead of constipation, you're the other way.
Yeah, so it's going both ways. So it's not a good plan. It also causes some respiratory issues, which are not good for you. You're not breathing right. Your respiratory system is not working in the way that it's supposed to be working. And it will cause you to have excessive sweating, all of that kind of stuff. And with excessive sweating, what does that cause?
To make you smell bad.
Yeah, make you smell bad. It causes body odor. It can do all of those kind of things. Dehydration, all of those things. And it goes right back to the same thing as constipation. If I have stress in my life that's causing me to sweat a lot, I had a lady tell me one time that she didn't sweat, she glistened. I said, babe, you're glistening really hard, You're glistening. But, and it will cause all those things, but it'll also go back to that place where it causes stress in your life. Because if you're having to be in public and all of these things are going on, that can also cause stress. So it's that cycle that keeps going around and around. This is happening in my life. This stress is causing this to happen in my life. And because this is happening in my life, it causes more stress. And so the stress causes this causes that.
Big cycle.
It's a vicious cycle. That's exactly right. All of these are regarded as indices of stress. When those things are going on in your life, when this is happening to you, you're having migraines, you're not eating well, you don't feel like you want to eat, you don't feel like you want to eat, you're constipated half of the time, and you're breathing shallowy and you're sweating like maybe you're under a lot of stress. Instead of going to the doctor and saying, hey, charge me a lot of money and give me a pill, maybe you ought to chill. Well, maybe you ought to go somewhere, sit down and say, hey, it's not as bad as I think it is. You look at the situation and say, man, this situation is not what I have made it out to be. And, so we need to, and one of the things that we can do is we look in our lives and see what it is that's causing us the stress, and then what do? we either move ourselves from the stress or we move the stress out of our life. If it's a person, then maybe we move away from that person or we move that person away from us. Everybody agree with that?
Agree.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing. So, not only are there physical outcomes that we have to deal with when we have stress in our life, stress can also cause us some psychological things. There's some psychological issues that happen to us when we're stressing out all the time. One of them is sleeping issues. We don't sleep well if we're stressed out. It'll cause us to have insomnia. And insomnia means I'm not sleeping well, right? And it can also cause nightmares. You have nightmares? Anybody have nightmares? Why do we have nightmares?
PTSD.
You take Tramadol.
Well, first off, let me share this with you. If you are in early recovery, it is normal to have some nightmares. It's normal to have some using dreams and to have some nightmares and some just real vivid things going on in your night terror time. You know, when we can have night terrors that's just scared to death because and that will interrupt our sleep and all of that kind of stuff. But stress will cause that. And do you realize that getting into recovery is a stressful thing?
Yeah.
Because I'm getting rid of my major coping skill. I'm getting rid of my major best friend that I've ever had in my life, the one that took care of everything for me. I'm getting rid of my God because I had worshipped my drug for all of that time. I had poured every bit of my life into my drug, and now I'm getting rid of that. So it's real stressful to have to step away from that. And so that stress can cause us to not be able to sleep well and to have nightmares about all sorts of crazy, messy stuff. So not only am I in early recovery, which causes me to have nightmares and all of those kinds of things, I'm also stressing out because I don't have my coping skill anymore. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. So it causes insomnia, it causes nightmares. One thing that stress will cause, and I see this in my life a lot of the time, sometimes I get stressed out. I don't get stressed out a lot, and I don't get stressed out about many things, but sometimes I allow stuff to stress me a little bit, and it causes irritability in my life. I get a little bit irritable, and I get a little bit anxious, and that's what stress will cause for us, irritability and anxiety. And so that's another psychological outcome that stress can cause in our lives. And we need to know that when we can't sleep, we're not eating well, and we're having nightmares, and every time somebody says something to me, I'm snapping at them. I'm just irritable all the time. Could be that there's some stress in my life. One of the things that's very important, we need to get to a place where we can recognize stress. We can recognize that this is not a normal reaction to what's going on. Right. When I see something and I just go crazy over something, and that's just not a normal reaction. I need to know that, and then I need to look at why am I reacting the way that I'm reacting? Could be, maybe it may not be, but it could be that I'm having a little bit too much stress in my life, and I need to do what I need to do to get rid of the stress. We have a feeling of hopelessness. Anybody ever had that?
Yes.
I have. I have. There's a time in my life when I felt completely hopeless. I lived under a house one time for a while, and I'm going to tell you, it was a nice house. But underneath it wasn't all that good, So it was a little bit of a stressful situation, and at that point in time, I felt hopeless. It was just a bad situation. Sometimes that stress, do you know how stressful it is to live under a house when you're in your late teens and it's cold? It's freezing and you're under a house. Let me tell you something. If you go under a house when it's that's on piers, the wind just goes right under there, and it don't. And I will tell you that jacket is not that good. So I was hopeless at that point in time. So I had to look for some things to get away from hopelessness. So how many people like to be criticized?
Depends.
Oh no, I don't like to be criticized. Nobody likes to be criticized. But one of the things that can show us that we are really in some stressful situations is when I really get angry because somebody wants to criticize me about something. Is it okay for people to criticize me?
Yeah.
If you ask for their opinion,
I say everybody's going to be, no, you better not be criticized.
if you ask for their opinion, then
If
yes.
you ask for their opinion, look, if it's constructive criticism, if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, you don't need to do that anymore, and it's constructive criticism, then I'm going to receive that, go back and talk about it to God, I'm going to pray about it a little bit, and I'm going to work at not doing that anymore. Mm-hmm. If it's constructive, if it's something that's good for me, and I know it's good for me. If, on the other hand, it's just being, if I'm just being criticized because they want to criticize me because they don't like me, that's not good. We're not doing that. So that person's going to be that stress bomb in my life that I'm not going to hang around with much anymore. Right? Mm-hmm. If I talk to somebody and after I leave that somebody, I'm stressed out, what should I think about doing?
Good stuff.
I think that we should think about not going around that person anymore. Yeah, don't hang out with that person because they're a stress bomb in my life, and I've got enough stress bombs in my life without keeping the ones that I am able to remove. So we need to move that. So if I'm having anger toward criticism, the first thing I should look at when somebody comes to criticize me is whether that's warranted or not. Do I deserve that criticism? Is that going to be helpful to me?
Not at all.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a full-grown man. You're full-grown folks. You can take that criticism that's meant for good and use it for the good. If you need to change something to make that criticism acceptable, then do that. If not, then don't. So. This one's for everybody. Not for me, for everybody else. Excessive smoking.
Yeah.
They make it.
Yeah. How much smoking is excessive smoking?
A lot.
More than one.
More than one? How many did you say?
I said a pack and a half a day.
A pack and a half a day? Yeah. Well, there was a time in my life, and it was a long time ago, but there was a time in my life I smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day. That was excessive.
Indeed.
That was excessive. I happen to nowadays, I think one cigarette's excessive. Just one cigarette is just really harmful to your health and harmful to your lungs. And, it's just not good. So excessive smoking. But if you're out there and you usually, the way we look at excessive, if you usually smoke half a pack of cigarettes a day and now you're smoking a pack and a half a day, maybe there's some stress in your life that's causing you to overdo, on your consumption of cancer-causing elements in your life. And then, we do have substance abuse too. If you are abusing substances, if you're drinking too much, or using illegal, illicit drugs and stuff like that, all of those things could be indices of stress. And so if all of that mess is going on in my life, I need to take a look at that and see, is there a reason that I'm doing these things? Is there a reason my behavior has gone beyond the pale? Is there a reason that I'm doing some of those things that I know I shouldn't be doing? If there is a reason, what do?
Change it.
Yeah, see if there's a way I can deal with that reason. I'm going to start praying about it. I'm going to talk to my higher power, and then I'm going to see, is there something? Can I remove somebody? Can I remove myself? Can I remove a thing? Can I do something different? Is my diet messed up? Some of those things. Now, these are patterns. This is how stress responds to some patterns in our lives. And we'll look at that real quickly. Individuals' patterns of response to stress are an indicator of that person's personality. So who you are, your personality, how you see things, all of those things are going to feed into your ability to deal with the stress or your ability not, or your inability to deal with the stress. Some people, stress is not going to bother them. They work in a stressful situation all the time. Doesn't seem to bother them as bad. Other people's stress just wipes them out pretty quickly. Yeah. And so some people show hatred, irritability in stressful situations. When I get to the place, I don't think I show any hatred toward people, but I do get irritated. And when I'm irritated in one of those situations, I work pretty hard at removing myself from that. I have to get away from that situation. But by getting away, sometimes how many of you know that lots of times if you're in a stressful situation, you just can't get away from it. You can't just get up and walk away from it. You can't just leave. You can't just do some of those things that you want to do because you have to be in that situation. If you don't stay in a situation, guess what? If you're working at a job that's very stressful and you leave that job, what do? What's the first thing they do?
Fire.
Yeah, they quit paying you. They're not going to pay you. So sometimes we can't do that. But some people show hatred and irritability in those situations that are stressful. I think that I get more. I don't hate anybody, but I do get irritable sometimes, and I'm working on that. So when I'm looking at something that causes me stress, and I had to do this in a situation not here too long ago. There was a situation that was going on, and it caused me stress in my life, and I was getting a little bit irritated. And I got a little bit more irritated, and it continued to happen, and I got more irritated. So finally, I had to get to the place where, look, it's not going to stop. That's going to remain. That thing that's causing me the irritation, it's going to remain. That stress is going to be there. There's no way to get rid of it. So at that point, what I do? I got to praying about it, and I asked God to help me to just accept it. Okay. It's not really that big a deal. When you think about whatever situation in your life, whatever stress is in your life right now, what situation is it going to be in 5 years from now? Is it going to do something weird to you 5 years from now?
No, it's going to probably make it worse.
Well, it's probably not even going to be there.
It'll probably dissipate.
Yeah, it's probably gone. Probably usually an hour from now, that stress that's eating you up right now is not going to be there. So I need to be in my own thought processes. I need to understand that whatever this thing is, an hour from now, it's not going to be there. Or a day from now. Or next week. Or a year from now. It's not going to remain. Other people get really desperate sometimes when they have all this stress in their life. They get confessing, they start doing all of these things that really makes them feel, nasty. And so, again, we need to get away from that. So here's some things we can do these are tension reduction activities. And these are the things that these are good to know. They're things that are going to help us get the stress out of our lives. In day-to-day life, people come across a number of situations which arouse stress. So deliberate or unconscious desire to get out of stress is obvious in the increased rate of interest shown in sports, games, joining clubs, rearing pets, and all of that kind of stuff in our life. So, watching movies, all of that kind of stuff. So, what can you do to help you get rid of stress in your life? Somebody tell me one thing.
Play with my dog.
What is it?
Play with my dog.
Play with your dog.
Go to sleep.
Go to sleep. Yeah, all of those things. Look.
Meditate.
Mr. Carter,
Yeah.
can I interrupt for just a second? I need the clients that are going to drug court to come and sign out. I'm done. You need to sit up if you're gonna be sitting or stand up. We'll do it on this side.
So exercise is a really, really good thing. And I do know that most people believe that the word exercise is an ancient cuss word. It is not. It is a really good thing. We need to be exercising. There was a lady, I went to work out this morning, and there was a lady beside me who was working out as well. And she was a nurse. She worked at a home health thing, and she was talking about the fact that most of the people that she was working with were not moving anymore. So she was getting a little older, and so she was in the gym making sure that she was moving. And she was telling me this morning, she said, moving helps me stay healthy and stress free. I'm going, okay, stress free. She said, well, you can't keep all the stress out of your life, but when you have something in your life that's causing you some real stress, if you exercise, that's going to help you. It helps different people on different levels, but it is one of those things that we need to do, right? So does everybody know how to do the exercise where you just go through your muscles without doing some kind of crazy exercise? Nobody knows how to do that. So we're going to do that. Now, you guys over at South, I want y'all to do it too. And I'm watching through the
Oh my gosh.
camera there. So let's everybody stand up. Let's just stand up. And we're going. This is really good for you. It's going to help you, and it's going to help you to get the stress out of your life.
Okay.
So, how many people know that we're going to start from the bottom and go to the top? So, take when the bottom of your feet. I want you to come up on your tiptoes and tighten up your muscles in the calves of your legs. Just tighten them up, tighten them. Oh goodness! All right, now then let it down. Okay. Look, you have these are your largest muscles in your body right here. I want you to tighten these muscles up. Tighten them up. All right. Just tighten them. Don't that feel good?
No.
Then look, tighten up your buttocks. Just tighten them up. All right, tighten them. There you go. Keep them right. All right, let them go. All right, just shake your legs out just a little bit. Now we're going to tighten up our stomach muscles. Now, if you don't have any stomach muscle, this is a good beginning with that. So if you can feel your stomach muscles, and we all have them. There's some there. Just tighten them up till you feel your muscles get tight. You feel them? Get them real good tight. See how long you can hold them. Yeah, let them go. All right.
Did you know if you walk with your stomach tucked in all the time, it helps you lose weight?
Yes. If you walk around with your stomach tucked in all the time, sucked in like that, it'll make you lose weight.
That's what spanks are for. Tuck it all in.
So if you got your stomach all tucked in like that and everything, you're having to suck in wind. You got your mouth shut, you can't eat. So that'll work. So you have shoulders up here, your shoulders. All right. Then just pick them up like that and tighten them up. Hold them up. Hold them up just for a little while.
What?
Okay. All right, let them go.
Pat your head and rub your belly at the same time.
Okay. Look, you have behind your arm here. This is your what kind of muscle is that?
Tricep.
That's your tricep.
Bicep.
So you go backwards with the arm. Tighten them up like that.
Baba arms.
Hold them.
That's another arm.
Hold them.
feel like oil. I can feel
All right, check them out. That's good. Now look, yeah, just as the Arnold Schwarzenegger stance, y'all. Just give us a muscle like that, and just hold it, hold that muscle. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Shake them out. Now look, do you pull your legs up high like this just a couple of times? You don't have to do it a whole lot, just a couple of times. Now look, here's the deal. Look, you, I don't know how much you guys exercise, but for the most people, this is the most exercise they've had in a long time. It is. We can do. We can do that. What does that do to take stress out of your life?
It relaxes you.
It does relax you. It gets what's called lactic acid out of your body, which builds up in your joints and all of that stuff. And it'll get that away from you, and it will help you. It will also help you in longevity. What does that mean? You will live longer. Right. So, if you do exercise a little bit, even something on this low level, you can still, it'll help you live a little bit longer. So, okay, thank you. Sit. You may have your seat back, and we're almost completely done. And I want to go over a couple of real quick things with you. We still have a few minutes, and I want to just share this with you real quickly. We've already talked about. We need to look. One of the things that we want to do, we talked about having an issue with the God portion of AA and NA and all of that stuff. But we need to come to a place where we can get a concept of a loving God who is really in support of your sobriety. I will tell you about this, that no matter what you've done in your life, no matter how good you are, no matter how bad you are, God loves you. Yeah. And there's nothing that you can do about it. Nothing you can do about that. God loves you. We need to develop a concept of a higher power that is loving and supportive of our recovery. This may seem strange to us, but the God of the universe, our higher power, however we may see that higher power, wants you to be in a successful recovery. Wants you to get through this, wants you to get back out into society and do whatever He's called you to do. Right? Y'all believe that? Uh-huh. God loves you, cares for you, and He's willing to help you do what you need to do. Now, here's the thing. The last thing I want to read on this thing, and we'll be moving along a little bit tomorrow on something different a little bit, but we need to resolve spiritual conflicts. What does that mean?
Fix it.
Now, we need to fix some things.
Resolve what?
Spiritual conflicts. We need to resolve. Say it again.
You said resolve spiritual conflict?
Yes, ma'am. Resolve spiritual conflict. Okay. This is allowing for a meaningful relationship with a higher power. What is a spiritual conflict?
Something that's negative between two people? I don't know.
It is. And look, I'm sure we know some people have an issue with God. Mm-hmm. Some people are mad at God. Some people don't appreciate the fact that God has allowed this to happen or allowed that to happen, right? So we need to get to the place where we can resolve that. We need to get out of that. If we feel like God has let us down, we need to get to the place where we can say, okay, if that's true, which is not, but if that's true, I'm going to forgive you of that. Doesn't that sound a little strange that we are forgiving God? Sometimes we need to get that in our own psyche. He's forgiving us, so we can forgive Him all of the time. When we're doing that, it's just something of our own concept, but we need to be able to do that so that I can have a good, positive relationship with a higher power, right? Mm-hmm. And it's important for me to have a good, positive relationship with a higher power. Why?
It gives you something to look forward to.
It gives you something to look forward to.
It helps you in recovery.
It helps me in my recovery. When something happens out of my control,
It de-stresses you for sure.
yes, I can go to him, but because nothing is out of his control, right? This thing that I have made of my life was out of my control. It was only through a higher power that I could get any control at all. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we make our problems bigger than bigger
Sure.
bigger than God is.
Oh,
Our problems
yeah,
are bigger than our
absolutely. That's a really good point. She said sometimes we make our problems bigger than our God, and that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? We do have a. My higher power is pretty awesome, pretty amazing, pretty powerful. So, questions, comments, or snide remarks? And I know, thanks, man. I do know. I want you to know that we are working on a situation where we can have interaction back and forth between the two groups. And I don't know how we're going to get that to work yet, but Miss Sierra is working on that. And I know y'all know her, and you bet she's brilliant. So she'll be able to come up with something somehow to do that. She's already got some ideas, and I had one of the folks at the other facility had a good idea as well on that, and so we are working on that. We'll get that done. So any other questions on this side?
No, sir.
Because the questions you have may help the other side.
It's gonna be done on Zoom.
Say it again.
It's gonna be done on Zoom.
Well, I'm not sure about that. She asked whether or not we're going to get that finished up in June, and I'm not really sure about that. It's going to be done pretty soon because we are actively working on that. And once she gets actively working on something, we usually come up with something pretty quickly. So
No, I didn't say June. I said on Zoom, like on Zoom
Zoom.
video.
Okay.
No, Zoom.
And that yes, I do. I used to work on Zoom a whole lot. She asked if it was we're going to be moving to a Zoom situation, and Mr. Farmer had talked about the Zoom thing, and we, whatever it takes to get that done. If we were on Zoom, we could do that it'd be pretty easy to do. You can just talk back and forth on a Zoom thing. But we will be seeing how that works, and as soon as I get that thing up and running, or as soon as somebody else gets it up and running, we will let you know about it. Okay? All right, look, I want to give you some positive affirmations. You did very well today. There are folks, y'all give yourself a hand because you really did well today. There are some times, and I do know our group has changed a bit from what it was when I first started, but the way that we're doing things makes that necessary. But we've had some people in here that's been a bit less than excited about the group. Today you did well, and I just the whole group deserves positive affirmation. And those of you who used to sleep, you're awake. And I appreciate that. We do want to, as a last little thing, we want to give Miss Kelby a hand. This is her last day. She is leaving, and we are so happy to see her go.
Oh, whatever.
All right, so we're out. Thank